Hello, this is Felix from GMWolf, and today we're going to be covering scripting in GM Studio. Scripting is what allows you to have better control over your objects in GameMaker. It is what allows you to carry out more advanced set of instructions and to define your own set of instructions as well. The programming language that GM uses is GML. It is specific to GameMaker as it was developed especially for GameMaker. The main concept behind code is variables. Variables are what hold the different values used in your game. For example, you could have a variable for the position of your player, or another for the ammunition left inside the gun of your player, for example. You can create a variable simply by setting a value to it, like this. So you could have x is equal to 5, for example. And this will create a variable named x and make it hold the value of 5. It is important to remember that the variable is not the value itself, and it can be changed at any time. You can set the value of a variable at any time, as I said, in different ways. For example, you could have x is equal to 5 plus 2. This will make the value of x be 7, simply because 5 plus 2 is 7. Now, notice how at the end of each line I'm adding a semicolon. That is not necessary in GameMaker, but it's strongly recommended because it may lead to errors if you leave it out. Of course, I can add more variables. I can have, for example, y is equal to x, for example. And that will create a new variable named y and make it equal to whatever value x is currently holding. So this will essentially say that y is equal to 7 because x is equal to 7. So x will still be equal to 7 as said in the last line. And because y is equal to x, y will also be 7. Now, if I change the value of x, for example, I say, x is equal to, let's say, 2. Now, x will now be equal to 2, but y will still be equal to 7, even though in the last step I did say that y was equal to x. This only happened once, and now that I changed x, it is not changing y because y is now set. Of course, you can do some more advanced things. You can have, for example, x is equal to x plus 1. What this is essentially doing is making x equal to, like, it adds 1 to the current value of x. So x was equal to 2 before, now it's equal to 2 because x is 2 plus 1, so x equals 3. So at that point, x equals to 3. This can actually be rewritten in another way, which is more used as it's easier to write. X plus equals 1. This is the exact same thing, but it's more concise, and the plus equals basically means add 1 to the current value of x, or add whatever this number happens to be. Now, you can also use things called functions. For example, sine and cos as a function. There's a bunch of other ones and more advanced, useful, I would say, ones. For example, I could now say y is equal to sine of x. And this will make y be equal to the sine of x. And sine 1 is, I'm not quite sure. Especially since you have to remember that sine will actually use radians, not degrees. If you want to use degrees, because you're more familiar with it, you'll have to use d sine, but that will come in a later date. But as you can see, you can do a lot more advanced things using your functions. And of course, some functions can have more than one input. You could have y equals, for example, let me think of a nice easy one to use as a function. You could have a function which will add two values together. I don't know why you would use this. For example, you could use add and then 1 and 2. And this will basically mean y is equal to 3. Now, add isn't in GameMaker by default. So I will show you how to add it yourself. And of course, you can make a lot more advanced things if you want to go and make more advanced grids. But as you can see, inside the brackets after my add, I have a 1 and a comma and a 2. This will obviously add the 1 and the 2, but it's important to remember to put a comma between your different arguments. Arguments is what you pass into your function. So let's see how we can use it within GameMaker. So let's open it up, and as you can see I already have an object set up. I'm not going to bother naming it, and let's create a new event, create. So let's go into the control panel, a control tab on the left, and drag and drop a code piece. And this new window should pop up. You can now write a bunch of code in there. For example, you may want to start giving it a new variable. For example, x is equal to 2. Now this, remember, was set x equal to 2, and if you want to add a comment, which is a piece of code which isn't actually important, it will be ignored, you can actually press two slashes like so, and it will add the code of whatever is. It will basically, you can write anything you want over here. So remember, this will mean create a new variable. Okay, now we can do some more stuff. Now let's look at a function which is used slightly differently. This function is, you have two different types of functions. Some will return a value, which will mean you can set a variable and then put your function, for example, sine or cosine or add if you created it. Or you have the other types of functions which will carry out some code. They are used, for example, if you want to show a message, which is what we're going to use. So go to show underscore message, open brackets, and you want to show number 2. Now here's where it gets a little bit more advanced. Right now you have a number right here. Now that's all fine, but the message needs to be words. It needs to be something called a string, which is a set of characters. So if you want to make it show the message as characters, you have to convert this number into a character. So what you do is you press string, which is again another function which will return the character of whatever you typed inside. So I want it to find the string of x. And semicolon, remember. So this is a bit more advanced, but it is one of the only way to explain visually and quickly how variables will work. So you have, first of all, your show message. He needs a string, but you only have a number. So you convert your number, well, you create a new kind of character based on your, a new kind of word based on your variable, whatever it's inside. And this new string will basically be, replaced. So if I put it visually like that, it will basically be replaced with 2, but as a string form, like so. And you see, so the program will go through string x, notice, oh, well, that is actually 2, and say, hey, show message. You shouldn't be saying string x, you should be saying 2. And then that's basically how it works. So right now what we'll get is a message coming up and saying 2. And then you can press OK and carry on with the rest of the program. Now that's not very interesting. We want it to do some more stuff. So we can add numbers to it. So we can have x is equal to 5 plus 7. That will make it be equal to 12. And we can again show that number right here by copying and pasting it, and now we should have numbers saying 12. Again, not too interesting, but we can do some more. We can increment x by adding a value to it, for example 5. Now this should now say 17 once we copy and paste that line over. And finally we can do some other stuff. For example, let's use a function sine. We can say y is equal to sine x, and then you have your show message y, and that will say the sine of x. Remember, that's in radians, so it's not going to be whatever your calculator tells you unless you put it in radians. Now, you may notice that these variables are in red right now, and that is because x and y are actually built into GameMaker. They actually mean something, and I will come to that later on when I show you how you can actually use these numbers in a useful manner. So yes, x and y are actual built-in variables. If you have another variable, for example z, as you can see, it will be in white because it is not built in, but it still works. Of course, your variables do not need to be only one number. They can be longer. Well, one character, they can be longer. For example, you could have food is equal to 0, or apple is equal to 9, I don't know. And as you can see, they can be longer than one character, so you can have a full-on description of what your variable means. So let's see if this works properly. So if you press the green play button, oh yes, you need to create a room, of course. So just place your object anywhere in your room, it doesn't matter right now. So it will start compiling and stuff, which may take a bit of time. But once it's done, you can see your first number here too. Now let me bring back up this right here and go back to the game. It says 2, and this is exactly what we needed it to say. We said x is equal to 2, so show the message of 2. Okay. Now it will go, once you press OK, it will start doing the rest of the code. So it goes, oh well, now he's telling me to say that x is equal to 5 plus 7, which is 12. So right now it will say 12. Perfect. It's working fine. Now we have a value of 12 over here. What if we add 5 to it? Well, remember plus is equals means add the current value, 17 of course. And now we will say that y is the sine of x, and sine of x is apparently sine of 12, which was the previous value of x, because remember, it will be stored, so it stays inside the memory between all the different pieces of code. And we'll say that the sine of x is minus 0.96. So this is how you can add code within your game, and if you press OK, it will just stop. Now you can close this, and we will see how we can add some more interesting bits. So this piece of code you don't really need anymore, so you can delete it by right-clicking here and pressing delete. Now let's see what we can do with some more code, more visually. So let's create a new sprite. Remember, the sprite is the image that can be displayed on the screen. SPR ball, again, why not? Whoops, that's supposed to be a B. Okay. Edit sprite and create a new sprite. Make it a black square, for example. It doesn't really matter at this point what you do. You can make it a nice little player, if you will. And now let's actually make it move to left and right with the keyboard. So you have two basic variables built into every object, x and y. So if you look inside your room, you will see that first of all you have your blank square. You can drag it to the center of the screen. And if you look on the bottom of your room over here, you have your x and y value of your current mouse position. So as you can see, top left, you have an x and y of 0, and as you move down, it goes up and up. That's quite important to know, that you can change the position inside the room with the x and y. So y gets bigger as you go down, and x gets bigger as you go right, and smaller as you go left, and smaller as you go up as well. So you can simply set the position of your player with by just changing the values of x and y. So inside your object, you can go into another event, and we want it so that when you press the right button, the right arrow button on your keyboard, you want your character to increase the x value so that it moves right, right? So you want to go in the keyboard, right. And now we can add in a piece of code. So remember, if we're going right, we need the x value, which is, the x position of the object, to get bigger in order to move it to the right. So we can simply go x plus is equal to mean add this to the current value of 3, for example. And we can do the same for left. So add event, keyboard, left, and we can add another piece of code, x, but this time we don't want to add a value, we want to make it smaller, so we want to subtract a value. So you can go minus is equal to 3, for example. And you can do the same for up and down, add event, keyboard, up. This time, when you're going up, you want the y value to get smaller, because remember, at the very top, y is equal to 0, and at the very bottom, y equals whatever the size of your room is. So you want to go y is equal, y minus is equal to 3. So remember, when you're pressing up, the y value will decrease by 3. And you can do the same with down. Add keyboard down, and you want to go y plus is equal to 3. You're adding 3 onto the current y value. So let's see what happens if you press play. Everything should compile fine, and we should get a going to pop up. And now, if I click inside the game and press up, hooray! The box is moving upwards, and down, down, left, and right. So now when I'm pressing the different keys, it is actually doing just as we said, adding on X and Y. And GameMaker will actually handle all the drawing of the box and stuff for you in the right position. So we can still do some more. Let's create a new object. Use the same sprite, because why not? And now let's do something a bit more crazy. Let's go in the add event step. And we want to make x continually bigger, so it keeps on moving to the right. So x plus is equal to 3, for example. And so this will make x continually bigger. However, we want to, let's say we want to have it kind of making a wavy pattern. We can say y is equal to sine of x. However, this might be a little small, the change, so we can do 10 times sine x. And now, if we place it somewhere inside the room, selecting the correct object, for example here, and pressing play, we should see a box moving up and down as it moves to the right in a wavy fashion. So let's hope this works. And as you can see, it's moving up there really quite fast, but it is working. Of course, you can change this, because right now this is using radians. We might want to use degrees, so you want to use d sine, which will be the sign for degrees. And you also notice how it was stuck on the top of the room. This is because we're saying y is equal to 10 times d sine of x, which can be quite small. So we want to add an offset. So maybe we want it to be 60 pixels down, or maybe even more, 200 pixels down. So 200 plus 10 times d sine x. Now, this is quite ambiguous, because it might be 200 plus 10 times all this, or it might be 200 plus 10 times all this. So we want to add brackets in, just like you do with normal algebra. And now if we press play, we should see it moving a lot slower up and down, and a lot lower as well, so we can see it, the whole thing. And as you can see, it's moving up and down, and in a wavy fashion, and going across the screen. And you can still move around with your other objects. So now that we have had a look at the basic things you can do, let's have a look at how you can create your own set of instructions, your own functions, you know, like you have sine. So let's create a new function called add. So creating this button right here, next to the kind of weird arrow called create scripts, this window would pop up, and just name it up here scr underscore scr for script. Add. And now it becomes a little more complicated. You want to basically return a value. You want to have two values come in, you want to add them together and return whatever you added. So you want to add so the two values that you get when you when you put it in code will be the two values you want to add together, and they'll be called argument 1 and argument 2. So it will create variables for you. So you can go argument, actually it will be argument 0, because in programming everything starts from 0, plus argument 1. Now you're adding right now argument 0 and argument 1. However, you need to return whatever they make. So remember, argument 0 and argument 1 will make a new number, and you want to return that. So simply return. Now, remember, return will basically mean it will replace that str_add when we type it into our code with whatever value is within here. So that makes it quite a simple script to add. So press OK. And if you want to use it within your game, so let's go back into Object0, go into the create event, and let's add something very simple. We can go, again, show_message. Then we can make whatever value is going to be inside into a string so that it can be displayed. We now want to add two values. So we can go str_add. You can have the first value, for example 4, and 5, for example, and close all the brackets so that you have the same number on the left and on the right. So this will first do str_add, which is 4 and 5. Actually, you don't need the space. And if you look inside this, it will basically say replace str_add 4 plus 5 with argument 0 plus argument 1. Argument 0 is 4, and argument 1 is 5. So this will add 4 and 5 and replace str_add with 9. Then string says, okay, well, whatever is inside me, 9, will be turned into a string. So it will replace the string, whatever all this, into 9 as a string form. And then show message, remember, we just show the message onto the screen with whatever is set in it. So let's press play and see if it works correctly. And it has. It just says 9. And if you press OK, you still have the rest of your game running after this. So, as you can see, you can put functions within functions, etc. And you can go like this for as many as you want. So this is a nice way of making more advanced features in your game. Of course, you can do a lot more with scripting, but more code will be covered in future episodes, in future tutorials. We'll be showing you how you can create more instances on the fly instead of putting them in the room, and how you can create a very simple player with a gun shooting bullets. So thanks for watching. If you did enjoy this tutorial, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.